Audiogyan is proud to partner with UnBox Cultural Futures Society and What Design Can Do. What Design Can Do is an international organization that seeks to accelerate the transition to a sustainable, fair, and just society using the power of design. What Design Can Do is launching Make It Circular Challenge, a global design competition building a circular future in partnership with IKEA. This challenge invites designers and creative entrepreneurs from everywhere to submit design driven climate innovations. The end goal? To show the world that circular future is not only imaginable but actionable. Winning projects will be propelled into 2023 with a €10,000 in funding and a tailor made development program. Submit your proposals online for free by 31st Jan 2023. Check out the design briefs and learn more about it on makeitcircular.whatdesigncando.com. Link in the show notes. And now today's episode. This is Audiogyan, and I am your host Kedar Nimkar. Welcome to a deep dive into the minds of luminaries from the Indian creative world. Today we have Pepijn Zurburg with us on Audiogyan. He's a designer and an art director. During his studies at Utrecht School of Arts and Sandberg Institute, Pepijn met Richard van der Laken. Together they founded renowned visual design agency Designpolitie, graphic design collective Gorilla, and What Design Can Do, about which we'll be talking in depth later. Their work has won numerous awards and features in permanent collection of galleries at the Stedelijk Museum Amsterdam and MoMa New York. Working with partners and clients from KPN to Frascati Theatre and many more. Pepijn is responsible for leadership and strategy, branding, and visual communication for everything at What Design Can Do. A true all-rounder designer with strong hands-on approach. Welcome, Pepijn, to Audiogyan. It's a real pleasure to have you on the show.
Yes, well, my pleasure entirely. Thank you for having me.
Okay, awesome. So I've come up with few questions and broadly divided into two parts. One is generally understanding your philosophy of design. And the second portion is about what design can do, which is a competition that is sort of in works. And I have one last surprise question for you. Just because I got to know you're like a hands-on designer. It's my personal curiosity to know what's hands-on. So I think I'll keep it in the last. But I typically start off with this question with most of my guests is that what's your definition of design and how has it changed over time?
I'm not sure if I have a real philosophy on design. I can tell you a bit about my own experience. I think as a graphic designer, you start by being trained in school to be in charge of your own stories, contents, ideas, coming up with your own concepts, shaping them, etc. Basically making your own assignments. And then when you start working in the real world, you all of a sudden, you quickly notice that you are in the service of clients. So you are translating, as it were, the story of the client, a campaign or a cover of a book, a poster, anything that they want to convey to an audience, and you are processing that, designing it, trying to make it as clear as possible. But you're not in charge of that narrative, of that story. It's always the story of somebody else that you're translating. And although that can be very exciting and can be very inspiring, and you encounter all kinds of new ideas and people, I think it's also pretty important that at a certain moment you come back to this idea of, I have my own story to tell. As a designer, it's important to be in charge of your own narrative, as it were. And in a way, I think it's not for every design for every design, every type of designer, because there are a lot of designers who just come up with products and they invent products, chairs, vases, whatever, and they bring them to the market. But as a graphic designer, you're mostly working for clients. It can be sort of challenging. And so this is exactly why after, I don't know, 10, 15 years, we started this thing called What Design Can Do, where we could be in charge of our own content again.
But then I've little exposed to David Carson's work, and he also has a little sort of a graphic background, but it's quite abstract. So any thoughts on that? That can a graphic designer influence the narrative, or just always take it forward? Is there a possibility for a designer to sort of change the narrative to a certain extent, just because?
Now, of course, there are a lot of graphic designers who are fine examples of being basically the creator of their own content. People who make self-published magazines, who make graphic art, who initiate their own projects. And also there are many designers who have such a strong, let's say, graphic language, where really the graphic language becomes part of the narrative, especially in the early work of David Carson. That was the case. The stuff that he did with ray gun, of course, took opened up a whole new world. That was around the time when we were in art school, so that was a big influence on us. The early, sort of completely radical, free-form graphic sort of anarchy. That was very inspiring.
Yeah.
But having said that, also ray gun, in the end, was just a magazine about pop culture. I'm sure he didn't write all of the articles himself. So again, although I think the graphic component was very strong in the whole experience of that magazine, it was also yet another magazine.
Correct. Yeah. So zooming out a bit from keeping obviously the design paradigm in the same place, has the definition of design changed over time? Because I have this famous line which I keep using, that when you don't know Zen, rivers are rivers, mountains are mountains. When you're learning Zen, rivers are not rivers, mountains are not mountains. And when you have learned Zen, rivers are rivers, mountains are mountains. So it's kind of a cyclical pattern that you first get into a sort of hypothesis, and then you challenge and question stuff, right? Have you seen that curve in your understanding of design, as to, especially after starting What Design Can Do, the confined or the limited worldview that what design can do has suddenly expanded, and any learnings or anything that you want to share in terms of your definition?
Yeah, I will say, of course, I started working in 1995, and over all that period of time, design has taken many shapes and forms. I think it's a bit difficult to say anything about it in really broad strokes, because it's not true for all of the world, and also not for all the disciplines. But you could, in broad strokes, of course, say that design was originally the sort of a very functional act of processing materials and information, adding value to them, so that people can use it, that the life of people is becomes easier or better or more beautiful or simpler or whatever. And then it started to become something, the design became its own objective. So things need to be made beautiful to make our lives beautiful, to focus on the outside, to focus on the shape of things, on the coating, and then it became design, especially in the Western world, became associated with luxury, with trivial stuff for rich people, stuff that is exclusive, and I think nowadays, especially also in art schools and every designer is trained in, okay, why, basically in this philosophy of what design can do. How can you use design as a problem-solving tool for the big issues of today? So design in itself is not so is not a goal in itself, but it's something to work on poverty, equality, on climate change, on all kinds of issues that we need to repair. And maybe, and that's of course something that we have been pointing out here, what design can do, is it also something that we as designers have helped create. Things like waste, the enormous amounts of waste that the world produces. That's something that designers have had a big hand in. So I think that's a good thing. That's a good thing that we see this curve. But I'm also sure that it will come back. That there will be a time where design will be much more about making beautiful stuff, making expensive clothes. But then again, I also realize it exists next to each other.
Yeah.
I think 3 years ago, I went to the Salone di Mobile in Italy, and then I spent a few days on looking at all kinds of work of young designers who did great things with recycled products. And I don't know, the whole theme of circularity was already quite important. And then there was also, let's say, the official Salone, where it was just a showcase of, I don't know, golden chairs, marble toilets, anything you can imagine. Mirror walls and the really expensive stuff.
Yeah. I think, you beautifully captured the breadth and obviously the depth of like what the canvas has been since at least 90s. So you pointed out that initially it was more of problem solving and getting stuff done, right? Just basic stuff done. And in the end also, recently it has been more problem solving. So before we jump into that, what design can do, like what is your take on the long-term or the short-term view of design, at least in India and this part of the country, this part of the continent, you see that it's more for profitability. There are these apps design, there are these low-cost, non-durable stuff that is being designed. So, like, what according to you is like a short-term and a long-term view when design has to intervene in stuff?
Yeah, well, I thought about this question. I think maybe it's true for everything in life. Everything that brings you satisfaction on the short term will bite you in the ass in the long term. And it's the same with design. I mean, all those easily disposable throwaway products, they are very handy for a short period of time. But the problems are you're going to see the problems in the long run with all the waste and all the material depletion and all those problems that this sort of wasting of fast sort of turnover of products is producing. So I mean, all of the short-term decisions that we make are not good for us in the long term. For instance, the car has brought us so many good things, liberty. We could travel, this idea of freedom. But now the car is, of course, a really big problem because the whole world is suffering from air pollution, and there are so many cars. They take up so many space, literally, but also in the industry, in society. So what good has it done for us in the long run? Whereas on the short term, it's a fantastic product, of course, that will sort of even today, if you do not own a car and then the next day you own a car, your life changes. It opens up a lot of possibilities.
Correct.
So,
sorry, go ahead.
No. So that's a bit of the thing, and that is also part of the problem. I mean, I also understand a lot of factories or companies still use raw materials because it's so much easier. It's so much easier to use like virgin plastic and make something out of it than recycling old bottles and cleaning them and blah blah blah. It's just yeah, the fast way is often also the cheap way, and the simple way. And it sort of offers a solution today or tomorrow. Yeah, but not in the long run. Because in the long run, we will have huge problems that we do not know how to deal with. Or we push the real cost of this quick solution, to the future, to future generations.
Yeah. But then how do you sort of, I don't know whether that's again in that part of the world, but in India, it has, being a developing nation, it has really helped a lot when it comes to like just making these sachet type stuff, which is like you get a shampoo in less than $1 in like a small plastic thing, or oil or shampoo. Now, because of that innovation and generally making shorter forms of FMCG really help to reach to larger set of people. Now, how do we sort of reconcile this? Because it has done good on one side, but it has created a lot of plastic on the other side. So, like maybe we can go into that circular piece from this segue, but just wanted to know your thoughts that then how do we make peace with this profitability versus the long-term view?
Yeah, that's very. In a way, you already said it. That is really hard because these sort of things also bring a lot of sort of good things to people. I mean, if this particular example that you explained makes this product much more accessible to larger groups of people that have been that was not how do you say this? I mean, in the end, they will also drown in this mountain of plastic. So I think for designers, we have to look at, okay, in this particular product, distributing small amounts of soap and shampoo, how can we do this in a way that doesn't pollute, that we do not burden the earth with a lot of pollution afterwards? And I think that is where the sort of the new designer comes in.
Correct. Yeah, and that's
because you can't be. Because it's also impossible to move forward without sort of with depriving all the people who do not have access to the kind of lifestyle that people in the northern part of the world have. And I say, okay, now enough is enough. We have polluted the whole world. We've created all these problems, and now everybody, So that's not sustainable. It's also not sustainable. We have to design better things and not silly little plastic bags.
Yeah. I think this is a good point to segue into the circular challenge bit. And I wanted to understand, like, to me, it seems like there will be certain principles which should guide these things, right? And in that context, like, can you share like what are the fundamental aspects of circular design, which is also this year's theme? Yes. So I was saying, like, maybe this is a good point to sort of intervene into what are the fundamental aspects of principles that you bring when you think of circular design, which is kind of this year's theme. So are there sort of building blocks, certain principles which are non-negotiable to make things or like design processes and services which are circular in nature?
Yeah, well, we have recently launched this Make It Circular challenge. And there we say there are three fundamental aspects. So on the one hand, we need to design things that will last longer. So don't design things that you use once and then throw away, or that have a very short lifespan, but really look at all the real costs of the manufacturing of a product or a service, and use it for the amount of time that it is designed for, which is very hard, because I think if you do a calculation, I'm not sure if I get the numbers right, but if you do a calculation, for instance, for a mobile phone, you should use it for 250 years, which is impossible, because most people just switch phones every 2 years or even less. But in the long run, that's not sustainable, because then we sort of, we're only taking and creating a huge mountain of waste. So we need to design things that last longer, so that have a real lifespan according to the value that has been put into it.
Okay.
And then, of course, you can think within that design to last on all kinds of strategies, that you have to be able to update things, you have to be able to repair things, you have to be able to add things, or they have to be modular, or they have to be just built stronger. And you also have to think about, where's the business model in all of that? Because, I think a lot of businesses are run on the fact that people buy stuff again and again and again. So, what would how would the world of mobile phones look if everybody just bought one phone and then had one phone for the rest of their lives? It would be a completely different business model. So that is one pillar, and the other one is that we have to work with and sort of in sync with nature. So in the end, there is, of course, this idea that we only have one planet, so we have to live and work and produce within the boundaries of what nature gives us. And I think we have to it also goes back to looking back to the people who were before us. They were much more in sync with nature. Nature designed a lot of things for us. Nature has processes, processes to repair, processes to produce, processes to grow things. Let's look back to that and see if there are simpler solutions to things that we now have become accustomed to produce in a sort of in a different way, in a man-made way. And then of course, really coming back to the circularity, only use what exists. So use waste as a basic material, recycle, reuse, repair stuff, and best of all, make stuff that is even sort of regenerative, so that has a capacity of repairing some of the damage that we've done. So these are the three things that we think are important to take into consideration if you think about designing, producing, and working towards this circular way of living, lifestyle, economy.
Yeah. Brilliant. In fact, the rest of the conversation, I'm just going to double click on these three. But before that, just you and Richard started What Design Can Do. If you can also give us like a little bit of context of what is the competition about, any particular moment or a project or something which you witnessed firsthand was a trigger point to think about it. Some really, I don't know, what was the backstory behind it, and also a little bit of landscape or a panoramic view of, you started off with Refugee Challenge, and I think 6 years later, you now have like Make It Circular Challenge. Just like a landscape of stuff that has happened so far, and then we'll move on with these three fundamental aspects that you mentioned about.
Okay. Yeah, well, we actually, What Design Can Do started not as a design competition, but we started out by organizing events, design conferences or festivals. So in around 2011, we thought of making a sort of, we call it a conference, sort of a festival for designers, where we would, in Amsterdam, where we would bring like inspiring designers from all over the world to a mostly Dutch audience to talk about this idea of what design can do. At the time, I think it was not such, how do you say, a trending topic to think about design in those terms, but we wanted to show the design community, how they could put their skills, knowledge, energy, access to media, to work towards, big societal goals, climate change, social issues, freedom of speech, gender equality, all those topics. So we did a conference that was, we thought it was a lot of fun, a huge success, and we organized it again the year after and the year after. And then some people from Brazil reached out to us and said, this is so great. Of course, we already were building on this international network because of all of the people that we invited. Then we started organizing events in Brazil. So we did that for a couple of years. And then the same thing happened in Mexico. And meanwhile, in 2017, I guess, we thought, we are bringing all of this inspiration to the stage. We're trying to inspire the design community with all of these wonderful stories. Maybe we should also, get our hands dirty and start working on some of these issues ourselves. And then we got into contact with the IKEA Foundation, and together we came up with this idea. In 2015, there was a huge refugee crisis in Europe. I mean, there had always been a refugee crisis, but then it spiked. A lot of people came in, wanted to cross the borders into the EU. And also there were a lot of disasters with people drowning while crossing the Mediterranean. And also in, let's say, Holland, Germany, and France, and the UK, there was a crisis with where do we house all these people? What are they going to do here? There was a huge influx of refugees. So we thought maybe we can come up with a competition or we need some fresh ideas basically on this issue, because government was not responding in the right way, we thought. So we set up this challenge, the design challenge. We called it the refugee challenge. And basically, the idea was, how can we improve the lives of the people who have made the whole journey, who are here in the Western cities, in the Western European cities, and who are in sort of these processes of getting a visa. And sometimes that would take 2 years, 2.5 years, endless. They had to wait forever. And in the meantime, they are not allowed to work. They're not allowed to settle somewhere. They were living in these sort of camps. So how can we improve the lives of those people? Not really a question that is put to designers on a daily basis. So, but the response was, for us, overwhelming. And there were so many designers who got to working, who came up with wonderful ideas that you could never thought of. And meanwhile, we also developed this whole process of how to organize a challenge, from getting people to submit ideas, to the selection procedure, selecting the right ideas, and also trying to sort of broadcast these ideas to the world, and also trying to help the people to get them implemented. Although that last bit, we didn't really plan for it, so that was a bit difficult. So 1 or 2 years later, we started also with IKEA Foundation on doing the same thing, but then on the topic of climate change. So we took a better look at our whole process, and we also thought, okay, if we cannot stop at just picking out the best ideas that come out of this competition, we also need to give those ideas a push towards development, towards making any sort of real impact, because otherwise you're just sort of generating a lot of funny ideas and then moving on to the next one. So then we really designed a process which was about mobilization, worldwide mobilization of designers to come up with ideas, then selecting the best ones, and then trying to develop them or accelerate them in a certain way so that they could go out into the world, and have a real impact on the issues at hand. And so now it's 2022, and we are 5 or 6 challenges further. We have done these global challenges on on climate action, on clean energy, on waste, and on circularity.
Amazing. It's very, very inspirational, and I think initiatives like these are powerful forces to change the narrative of what design can actually do. In the earlier part, where you mentioned that these days it's about problem solving and helping businesses grow, I think we are now sharing more responsibility, and I think it's empowering, and yet we have to be very aware of the kind of stuff that we are engaging with. Awesome. So, okay, circling back to the 3 aspects, right? You mentioned about the first aspect being it should last, right? Last longer. And I interviewed where I got to know this word continuum. I interviewed a professor from one of India's design school called Naveen Bagalkot. And he said design is a continuum, right? Where it's a process that you keep sort of, it's a process rather than like an output. Like I have not designed, but I am designing. So in that framework, or if you think from that lens, and again, we have this model of like you prototype, then you ship out, and then you sort of measure and test, and then come back to the drawing board sometimes, rejig stuff. So in this process, how do you see making things last longer? Because like, when do you stop designing that, yes, this is it, right? It is now well-rounded enough to last long. How do you measure? How do you test? Or how do you sort of make it happen, if it's making sense?
In a way, it's always, that's of course also up to the designer where he or she stops in a way. Because especially nowadays, design is sort of used for everything. There's everything like social design, and then it sort of becomes everything. But I think these 3 aspects also have to do with, are not only for the designer, but also for the end user, for the consumer. They also have to behave a bit more responsible. But for the designer, where do you stop? It's hard. We try to make people more aware of their responsibility. I mean, a lot of designers just take products and don't think about where those products come from, or the materials for the products come from, or where it's manufactured, or how it's shipped. But you can, of course, if you really think about it, especially if you're into things like consumer products or building, you can start by where do my raw materials come from? Under what conditions are they taken out of the ground? Are the people paid well? You can sort of dive into the whole chain of going from the mine to the stuff that is in the store. I mean, we have there's a project called Fairphone. It's from a Dutch designer, and it started with his frustration of. I think it was not even about a phone in the first place, but about, okay, my phone is broken. Why can I not repair it? Why can I not order spare parts and just replace them? Because I don't know, my camera is broken, but the rest is working fine. Why can I not just put a new camera in and then my phone is? Because at the moment you open the phone, your the insurance,
warranty,
the warranty,
out of warranty,
out of warranty. So he decided to make a modular phone which can be updated. Components can be replaced, can be repaired. You can even sort of update it with better components, etc. But then he also started thinking, where do these components actually come from? Where does the material come from? Of course, cell phones are notorious for being made out of all kinds of very rare materials that come from places in Africa and I'm sure India and China, where they're taken out of the ground under very bad circumstances, with a lot of costs for the environment and for the people who have to work there. So he started to look back on the whole chain of, how is this product made? And of course, it's very hard these days to control that whole chain. But as a really responsible designer, you can do the best you can. And then he also thought about, then there is the reality of people wanting to have a new product in their pocket every now and then. So then they set up this whole system for taking in phones and taking raw materials out of those phones. So in a way, you can go on forever. That way design can be a continuum where you should never stop. But I think it's not the case for most designers. I think it's still very much working towards an end product and moving on to the next product. And I know, especially if you make real products like stuff, cups or cars or whatever. Very depressing to think that eventually it will all end up in a landfill. So you're designing stuff for the landfill. And if you realize that, then you really have to think, okay, I better do something about that.
Yeah. I mean, but do you I'm just asking something on the fly. Is this a leftist view in the design? In a sense, I was reading this book called Ruined by Design by Mike Monterio. And even he sort of points out to a lot of stuff which we as designers are responsible, but perhaps designing in a bit of ignorance. I mean, he gives a classic example that a young graphic designer or a young UI designer is playing with or is trying to figure out how to make filters for a website, but unknowingly designing it for a weapons website. Which is kind of scary. Now, yes, he or she has to pay bills, but at least being aware that what you're doing is going to change. You'll land up changing a job or moving on in different verticals within design. So, the question is is there sort of a leftist view? You know what I mean, right? Like a slightly revolutionary view in design, or it has to be the mainstream view?
I'm not sure about left or right or mainstream. I think, most of the things that have to change and that cost money are considered. Or if you make a social change and it will cost money, then it's probably considered left wing. But no, I think it's a responsibility for all. But I do want to stress, we as designers should not be naive that we are that we can do this alone. Designers have to work in in a sort of an ecosystem of clients, of manufacturers, of I don't know, consumer markets, of policy makers, etc. And so design is not going to save the world, at least not by itself. But yeah, I think everybody has a responsibility. I mean, we were trained as designers, so we are in the design profession. So we think, okay, let's try to do the best we can to do a good thing. But yeah, if you're a farmer, or if you're a banker, or if you're I don't know, the director of everybody has that responsibility to see what is wrong in his or her area, field of expertise, and try to make it better. Because designers cannot do it by themselves. But I do think designers are, in a way, they're everywhere, and that's always where when we do a pitch or so, it's always start with that. I mean, why don't we start with design? Why don't we start with asking designers? Because look around, everything is designed. Every little thing that you see around you is designed. You have to travel very far away from the I don't know, the inhabited world to come across something that is still only nature. So designers have had their hands in everything. So it would be good to include them in the conversation from an early stage. And that's, of course, the other part that comes also from some sort of personal frustration, that more than often designers are the last ones to consult after all of the major decisions already have been made. And then let's bring in a designer to make it look nice. Or to give
it's the same story.
Yeah, right?
I guess it's the same story across the globe now. But yeah, it's. I mean, I remember two small bits before we move on to the next question. That one of the best looking and best functional products India has produced in the digital space, it's called ClearTrip, and the founder is a designer. It's an online ticketing platform.
Yeah.
And I interviewed him, and I said, like, what does a designer need to know in the digital product domain? And he put it very beautifully, that he said a sculptor knows the medium, right? Knows the marble, or knows whatever medium he's playing with. Similarly, an architect would or should know at least where the concrete is coming from, or where the bricks are sourced from, and so on and so forth. In similar aspect, in a digital world, a designer should know how to write code, obviously design, which is your pure aesthetic part and friendly part of it. And third is also to write copy, because that's where your communication power comes in. So all three things which go under the hood also surface up, but it's like a strong building block of becoming a good designer. So I remember that because you mentioned about designers to know the supply chain of things. And that brings me to the second point, was that I saw this documentary, I think it was on Apple. And I remember the last scene where it shows an iPhone and it says that now that you know all about Apple and how this supply and logistics chain work and the kind of pollution and everything, just look at the screen very carefully before you're turning it on, because once it's on, it's the most beautiful thing. So that frame, it's so nicely crafted that, first of all, you are watching on a laptop or your screen, so you see yourself in that screen, and within that screen there's an iPhone which is also shiny. So you almost see 3 layers of you. and once it turns on, your face disappears. It's very nicely sort of shot. Cool. So Pepijn, I wanted to club the two aspects in one question, which is sort of the second last question for this conversation, is that you mentioned about design with nature. And even I had given a very small flash talk many years ago, which was called Design by Default, and I had taken a small sort of case study of Indian thali, which is kind of a 3-course or a 2-course meal which we have in one shot, and there are certain things which are placed in certain order, and that's how I had the narrative of that. These could be rituals or cultural practices, but these are designed. These are not coming from like just because I felt keeping something. The desserts has to be in the end, or appetizers. These are like sort of designed in a way. And the question is mainly, then we as human species generally rewire stuff mainly for certain incentives, and then there are a lot of trade-offs. So how do you sort of look at trade-offs? Any example that comes to mind which is quite important?
I'm sorry,
when I say trade,
sorry. What do you mean with trade-offs?
Trade-offs is like, for example, we need to go faster. As you gave the example of cars, we designed and we manufactured stuff. Now we are ending up with air pollution and other sort of things. So and until you launch it, or until you sort of build a proof of concept, it's quite tough to envision 20, 30 years out what's going to happen with it, because anything excessive is going to create something. So there will be trade-offs. So maybe in the circular challenge evaluation criteria, or general as a designer, your practice, how do you look at trade-offs? Where is it good to stop? Where is it good to extend it? What is the threshold of trade-offs?
That's of course is in a way hard to answer, because it has to do also with the where does the responsibility of the designer end, and where does the responsibility of, let's say, the people start, or the consumer, or I don't know, I don't really like the word consumer, by making better designing things that make people's lives easier, you're also losing something. I mean, if the supermarkets are full of convenient meals, you just buy a package which is a complete meal. People are losing the ability to prepare a good meal themselves. So is that progress, or is that what are we throwing away by also offering people a better, or a choice that they like, or that they that will help their lives in the short term? We're coming back to this long term discussion. So I don't know. People used to make their own clothes. Now nobody does that anymore. It also freed up a lot of time, I guess. You could say that so much time was spent by our grandparents on making stuff themselves. I don't know. What does it cost? I'm not sure if it's only the responsibility of the designer.
Got it.
I think it's also people, wanting to have a more easy life, convenience, better, faster, so they have more time to do other stuff. I don't know, buy more products.
Very interesting. I think what I'm sensing is it's tough to take a particular stand here. It has to be a little organic, because what comes to my mind is that yes, we have smartphones to remember, to store numbers, while I remember back then, about 10 years ago, I used to remember at least 4 to 5 telephone numbers of friends, and now I barely remember mine, which is kind of so good in a way, but I think maybe it's you just have to find the right balance, I think.
But it's also something that is from let's say forever. I mean, there used to be societies where they thought writing was a work of the devil because it will make you stupid. You had to learn things from be able to recite large pieces of storytelling or context or sermons by heart, and not write them down, because if you write them down, you forget them. And I don't know. When you move forward, something else is lost. But I do think that we need to look back to some of those things and really, sort of recapture them and revalue them, to see, okay, what can we do without? What is really helping us improve our lives, and what is just a loss?
Correct. Yeah. So, can you recollect any case study or any particular applicant in the last 4-5 years of What Design Can Do competition, where you distinctly remember any solution or a proposed solution which was good enough, just as like just to get a flavor of what kind of entries?
Okay. So
you
I think I have two. One is from Africa, from Kenya. It's a project called Nyungu Africa, and I like it because it works on all kinds of levels. For starter, it deals with the situation that a lot of, especially women in Africa, do not have access to sanitary products. That is a problem in itself. So there's a group of female entrepreneurs, which is also in itself already a good thing, that have come up with this product, which is completely made from organic waste, is completely biodegradable, and which is available because it can be produced from local resources. It is available in even the remotest parts of the country. So there is this thing, okay, it's a female empowerment project. It's making a product that was not accessible to many women available, and it's a completely circular, non-toxic, non-plastic alternative for existing products. So I like it because it works on all of these these levels. And the thing is made from a really simple material, which is abundant. Like, for instance, the leaves of the pineapple, which are discarded after harvesting the pineapple. That was a good product. Another product that we really like is because we're also always talking about of living with nature. This is about dying with nature. It's a Dutch company called Loop. They have come up with this project they call the living coffin. It's like a coffin where you bury people in, and it's made from mycelium, so fungi. And so they cast this coffin, and it takes about 7 days for the mycelium to grow in the shape of a coffin. And then once you're buried in it, it will sort of decompose your body within 6 weeks. Because all those graveyards are actually sort of toxic dump sites. If you sample the ground there are so many toxins stored there, because the human body collects all the toxins, all the materials that you collect over your lifetime. You can't process, they're just stored somewhere. So in your body, there's actually a lot of heavy metals and all kinds of other toxins. And when you just put into a wooden casket, not only does the disintegration take much longer, but also all the toxins are just released into the soil, and the mycelium helps to clean all of that up. And really, so that afterlife, you really go back to nature. You're not only sort of decomposed, but you actually become part of nature. You are transformed back into stuff that nature can use. So it's really, in a way, regenerative design by dyeing. So I think that's a very good project as well.
Beautiful. I remember one episode, I think from 99% Invisible, the other podcast, and it was about, I'm based in Singapore right now, and it was about Singapore where they had to change the last rituals because there's no space to bury people. So they started cremating and putting them on fire. So technically just changing the last rituals of a religion itself because of these constraints of land. I just remember.
Yeah, but also cremation is very, a lot of pollution comes from cremation because it releases a lot of CO2 and also the toxins. You're basically burning a lot of toxins. So, I'm very happy because also this product is really making some progress. They are now they are now also in the collection of a few big funeral insurance companies. So whenever a relative dies, you can actually pick one of their organic coffins. So I think there's really a momentum for this project.
Yeah.
And by the way, also for the other example that I mentioned, I mean, these women are really making some steps. I think one of them was a couple of months ago was named Female Entrepreneur, African Female Entrepreneur of the Year. She won a big award. So I really like that.
Cool. I think I'll conclude with the last surprise questions, which was, yes. And this is like nothing to do with the previous conversation we had. Just wanted to pick your brain on sort of what are the advantages or sort of disadvantages of becoming or being a hands-on designer. Because, in typical career ladders, as you grow, you become manager or whatever, like different sort of engagements you do, at least in this part of the world. And I was just like digging up you and got to know that there are a lot of designers still completely hands-on. So any advantages and disadvantages you have seen sort of being an individual contributor all throughout your career? I'm sure Dieter Rams and other people were still playing with aluminium and other stuff, but thoughts?
Yeah, well, there are a couple of aspects. First of all, you have to know your stuff, and that, like you said before, you have to really know the material that you're working with. You have to know the audience. You have to know. And I think the best way of knowing that and also keeping your knowledge up to date is actually doing it, experimenting, coming up with new answers for new problems, new questions. Oh dear, the internet. Oh dear, I have to make a website. Oh dear, I have to make a book. I was never trained for it, but I don't know. I'll probably can manage. We'll figure it out. So that is very important because if you're only a manager, then the world becomes very abstract, I think. And the other thing, and that's also for me a very personal thing, there is sort of a gratification in sort of being able to make stuff, just do it yourself, being able to produce something that you can look back on and say, hey, wow, I contributed this to the world. This is my little piece of, I don't know, whatever that I made. I mean, probably for some people it can only be, also the gratification can be in preparing a nice dish or repairing your bicycle or whatever. But I think, for me, it's very important to every now and then, to make something. And that's always the best feeling. There was nothing, and now there is something.
Something beautiful. Cool. On that note, I think we'll conclude this. Thanks a lot, Pepijn, for giving your time. It was really some
Thank you.
gems hidden in the conversation, and a lot of food for thought, a lot of stuff to ponder upon, and all the best for the circular challenge. And all the links are in the show notes. And
Yes.
once again, thanks a lot. And that's it from today's Gyan session. For show notes and more Gyan, visit audiogyan.com. And if you wish to connect with me, I am at Audiogyan Moments on Instagram. Until then, take care.